information about the key eyewitness in the police shooting of Michael Brown. Dorian Johnson was walking with Brown when he was shot by a Ferguson police officer, and it turns out there's an arrest warrant out for Johnson in Jefferson City, Missouri. The warrant is for stealing, but that's not all. Johnson is also accused of lying to police. And Jefferson City Police Captain Doug Shoemaker joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you. So tell me what happened. What did he get arrested for? Dorian Johnson, the eyewitness.
In June of 2011, our agency was dispatched to a call of a stealing charge on the south side of town. There was an eyewitness that had witnessed Mr. Johnson allegedly take something from an apartment, the outside of an apartment from a residence there. The police officers arrived, followed him to an area athletic complex, and were able to interview him at that location. When they arrived there and talked with him, he was, I would say, less than cooperative with us in terms of his identity. But there was enough probable cause based upon the witness statement and other evidence that was taken to effect a probable cause arrest on Mr. Johnson. Now, at the time, Mr. Johnson identified himself as Derek Johnson and gave a false date of birth.
Did there ever come a time that he was arrested and prosecuted, or is this simply an arrest record?
He was arrested at that time, and he was taken to the Cole County Jail, where we do all of our processing of every prisoner. During that arrest process, he maintained that he was still Derek Johnson and refused to give any other identifying information, including addresses that were correct, date of birth, Social Security, basic information that any peace officer needs to complete an arrest report. The officer that made the arrest advised Mr. Johnson several times that he needed him to be truthful about his ID, and Mr. Johnson at that point refused to do so and still maintained that his name was Derek Johnson. He was issued a summons, as a matter of fact, for stealing as Derek Johnson, even though the officer had found a Lincoln University ID card on Mr. Johnson's person identifying him as Dorian Johnson.
So did he show up in court with that summons or not?
He did not. There's currently an active warrant for him. During that investigation, however, I will say that a day later, the officer had contacted the Lincoln University Police and had done some further checking and had in fact confirmed that he was Dorian Johnson. He was then arrested also for filing a false police report, where he later pled guilty to that in 2012.
Was he sentenced to that, or was that put in some sort of program where if you behave yourself for a certain period of time, it goes away, so it's not a real conviction?
Under the Missouri case net, which is an open record, I believe it says it's a suspended execution of sentence, and I think that he had time served for that, so there was nothing any further on that at all. But there is still an outstanding warrant on him, and in May of this year, we were notified by the Florissant Police Department, which is also a suburb of St. Louis, that they had come across him in a law enforcement contact, and they contacted us about the outstanding warrant with him.
So did he have to? What was the conviction for? What was that? Was that the false statements or not?
Right. The conviction, he pled guilty, according to Missouri case net, which again is open record, to filing a false police report. He has yet to appear in court on the stealing charge, so he's still pending that court date.
Captain, thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
And joining us from Ferguson, Dorian Johnson's lawyers, Freeman Bosley and James Williams. Good evening to both of you. And Mr. Bosley, thank you very much for coming back. Your client was an eyewitness to the shooting. He said that the decedent was shot in the back. That turned out to be false. Was he attempting to be deceitful, or is this mistaken eyewitness testimony?
Well, you know, if you really check into the facts, it really wasn't false. Now, it wasn't. The autopsy report basically said that he'd been shot, Mike Brown had been shot 6 times. Further discussion on it revealed that he was shot in the arm where he could have been shot from the back. My client said that he thought Mike was shot in the back, and so that's not inconsistent with what he saw.
Well, I have a statement here, and you may quibble with it. Maybe Mr. Williams, you quibble with me. It says, and I'm watching the officer as he's pursuing my friend. Now then he fired another shot. It struck my friend in the back, and I assume he means the back. Then my friend stopped running. His hands immediately went into the air. He turned around towards the officer face to face. He started to tell the officer he's unarmed and that you should stop shooting me. So, I mean, do you agree or not agree that at least he was mistaken about the back?
you know, I disagree with this characterization. I disagree with any attempt to try to say that Dorian Johnson was inaccurate or mistaken about this. The eyewitness testimony or eyewitness statements, not just of Dorian Johnson, but of lots of eyewitnesses, is undisputed that these young men were running away from the police officer as he's shooting at them as they run down the street. You know, the fact that, as former Mayor Bosley said, that there was a shot that entered into Dorian Johnson's arm that could have very well been from behind is consistent with that. But it's undisputed that the officer was firing at them. It's undisputed that they were unarmed. It's undisputed that they were running down the street. And so these semantics of was it in the back, was it from the back?
Well,
I
actually,
think
that does make a difference.
And takes away from the real issue. The credibility of Dorian Johnson.
Let me just say one thing. It does make a difference. If someone gets shot in the back, that certainly conveys a different thing than if someone is shot in the front. So it does make a difference. Eyewitness testimony is forever.
I have to disagree with you that if someone is shot in the back and someone is shot in the back of the arm, we're really splitting hairs. The point here is, and no one is disputing this, is that these guys were running away when they were being shot at.
Here's the problem, is eyewitness testimony is notoriously feeble in the sense that people often make mistakes. I don't know if your client is or is not, but it's very suspect. Then you've got the situation with your client who comes in with a rather spotty background. I don't know if it's going to come in, and Mr. Bosley, you can tell me the fact that he's filed a false police report, that may reflect on his credibility. Maybe someone's dismissive of it or not. I don't know. But these are all the types of things that have to be weighed and looked at when the grand jury considers the evidence. Do you disagree with that?
Well, no, we don't disagree with that, and we're glad that you brought it up because at the end of the day, the jury will consider a whole bunch of things. Not only grand jury, but more importantly, the jury that will be sitting to hear this case. It'll be up to 12 people sitting in a jury box to look at my client, look at his demeanor, look at his appearance, judge his character, and make a decision whether or not he's credible. And they're going to take all of these things into consideration. And we're looking for a day in court. That's what we're looking for here.
You know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for the. I want to see if the clothes have gunpowder residue on them or not. That's not the end all in this case, but that would certainly be instructive to me, is whether there's gunpowder residue or not on the clothes on the decedent. But I think there's a whole lot of evidence that still has to be examined, and I think that this has been so unfortunate because people are taking sides, and there's so much more evidence we need to look at, but. We'll get to that point. We'll get to the evidence, and hopefully we'll find out what happened exactly. Anyway, thank you, sir. Thank you both, gentlemen.
We really appreciate your time.
Thank you
now.